If my people Bible recording, if my people Bible reading, and recorded for you as part 141 today, the book of Jeremiah. And this is going to be mostly introduction in this one before we get into the chapters and verses. It's a remarkable book. There are a lot of remarkable books in the Bible itself, but this book in one of the Biblia here, one of the books, is remarkable because most of the prophets do not bring themselves up as importance. This one, he talks about himself a lot, so much that you really know that he is the weeping prophet. He is the one with the burden on him. He sees things coming that he doesn't want to happen. He no longer says resist like Isaiah said. Isaiah, if you remember, 100 years before this book was written, said resist. Stop this stuff. Stop it. End it. Do it. That's not what Jeremiah says at all. So is this from the Father? The exact opposite of what the Father told Isaiah 100 years ago? Yes, because as we'll explain, it's over. They've had 100 years. The people in Noah's day had 120 years. Remember? He said, I'm limiting you, mankind, to 120 years. He's talking about the time between what he just said and when it's going to be over was 120 years later. The big thing happened. Uh, the oldest man that ever lived passed away. And then, in that year, the flood. So, let's get into it. Some analogies here. Um, Jeremiah was born a priest just north of Jerusalem. And compare this to Yeshua. Just kind of listen to the words that I'm saying, going, oh, yeah. He was chosen to be given the word and to prophesy before he was even born. Mm-hmm. Um, he was called to the office at a young age. Yeshua was already stunning at 12 years old. Um, he didn't marry, and he was told not to. Yeshua, we don't know what he was told or not to do, but there is no children of Yeshua, okay? Not through Mary Magdalene or any of the Marys. None of them. Okay? No. Don't go down that Catholic road or non-Catholic road or whatever road. Um, he never made a convert. He was rejected by his people. He was hated. He was beaten. He was put in stocks. He was in prison. He was charged with being a traitor. Does that sound familiar? And think about this. Did Yeshua convert anybody? Why, yes, he could. Peter, and I can name all the apostles, 120 and 700 over here later on, and 14,000 later on. That's not true. When he was being crucified, he had no converts. Now, even if his mother and Mary Magdalene and all those were right below him looking at him, and John was there looking at him, did they believe? Even up to the week before, when everybody's getting ready from Capernaum, from his whole family, his half brothers and half sisters are getting ready to go to uh, Jerusalem. There's no indication at all. In fact, he made it pretty clear that they didn't believe in him either. Uh-uh. He didn't have time for him. He was pay attention to those he was supposed to be saying things to, and he did. And even to Peter, who said all these wonderful things, but yet when the time for testing is, are you my apostle? Peter said, no, no. You know, interesting. His message that he spoke broke his heart. Sounds familiar? He saw the destruction of Jerusalem in the Babylonian captivity. Yeshua saw the destruction of Jerusalem and 40 years later, after 40 years of testing, 70 AD. So it kind of gives you a big clue when Yeshua died. When he passed away, he was 30. Um, And then there's tradition, which I stay out of, about Jeremiah being stoned and all this stuff. Nobody knows. It's just tradition. I was told that by I don't know how many pastors and preachers that he was stoned. And really, can you please show it to me? I'd love to see it. I've never seen it yet. And I've been waiting, 50 years. I'm asking the first time. When Yeshua came to the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, "Whom do men say that I am, the Son of Man? Who's the Son of Man? Who's that?" And they said, "Some say you are John the Baptism, Elisha, Jeremiah, or some of the other prophets." There's Jeremiah's name. Now you can understand some of the reasons about Elijah and to some degree, but Jeremiah being mentioned here, even in the time of Yeshua, he's being mentioned 600 years later. Kind of interesting, isn't it? Jeremiah was a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. Now that might be a reason. The difference between him and Jeremiah and Yeshua was bearing our sorrows and grief, not seeing and watching it. But Yeshua even went to his father. "I can't take this. This is pretty rough." He went to the Father, "Not my will, but thy will, Father." Jeremiah tried to bail out. The answer was no. So can we also think, well, if Yeshua was trying to bail out, would its father have said no? The answer would be, that's correct. But Yeshua was Echad with the Father in all matters. So, chapter 1, that you're going to read here, is the call of the prophet to rule. And during this reign of Yeshua, during the rule and reign of Josiah, he was to be the prophet. Those two were to go together. Chapters 2 to 20, prophecies of Judah and Jerusalem prior to Zedekiah's reign. Zedekiah doesn't have a good reign, folks, as I've said before. Judah is condemned. Jehovah, Yehovah, rejected. They reared their own gods up again. They went right back to their comfort zone. The charge of backsliding came up. Backsliding is important, which I'll bring up in a few minutes. A nation of backsliders is not a good nation to be living in. We're in trouble again, United States of America. Big trouble. Chapters 21 to 29 is the prophecies and reigns of Zedekiah. That's when the 70-year captivity comes up. They're going to be gone for 70 years, which it ends up being true, which I always thought was fascinating because I loved the book of Daniel, and Daniel never came home. Now, whether he passed away, which is possible, or whether he just stayed on in Babylon in his position and his leadership and his skills and the ability and the wisdom that the Father gave Daniel and his apprentices and the other people that were with him. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, those, okay? Chapters 30 through 39 will be into the future of the 12 tribes and Judah's near captivity. There's a coming kingdom promised in this dark time. It's promised. It was promised to David in chapter 33. And Zedekiah's captivity, which is absolutely what happened, is right there in front of you. Jeremiah is imprisoned. It doesn't always go well for those who hear and obey Yahweh. There's another example right there. Judah goes into captivity. Jeremiah released from prison. That's all in chapters up till chapter 39 there. And the last two parts of it is chapters 43 to 51. A remnant. There's the remnant word again. So we've gone through the Bible so far, and we're here now in the book of Jeremiah. And have I mentioned once, anywhere in the Word that we've read and listened to so far, have I ever mentioned once where there's a worldwide revival, where there's prosperity for all, and that peace and prosperity is our end. It's our end, not what we want. It's our end. No, not once. Search all you want. Been there, done that, and I, ate the ice cream afterwards. It's not there. Okay. If I serve one purpose to help you out through all this, I can save you a lot of research time. For those that don't like to research and read a ton of stuff that ends up with nothing, you end up writing a ton of stuff that ends up not published, like grant writing and policy writing that nobody reads and nobody cares about. I'm the king of that stuff. I've done so much in my life that nobody reads it, nobody cares. But I did it because it was the right thing to do. Jeremiah did everything here because it was the right thing to do. Did it turn out wonderful for him? No. And then we get to hear what happens to Egypt, Western culture, and Philistia, the Moabs, the Ammonites, the Edomites, Kedar, Hazar, Elam, to Babylon. And Babylon continues on even today. Now Babylon, is, as I've mentioned, is all over the world. I really think the Vatican is Babylon. I think, and I'm not thinking Babylon, Iraq either. I think many parts of China are just oppressive Babylons. North Korea, a Babylon type area. Everything's dark and just horrible there. New York City, Chicago, any large city that is just, everything is just totally disruptive and hateful, self-centered, all about me. San Francisco, the behavior, L.A., not picking on the United States, go down to Mexico City, one of the largest cities in the world. What a horrible place to live in. There are lots of Babylons. Chapter 52 is the fulfillment of prophesied destruction of Jerusalem at that time. Because you got to remember here, 600 years later, Yeshua's walking in a whole different Jerusalem that's piled up. There are approximately 15 to 20 Jerusalems piled up on top of each other. And they don't carry away the stones and take them to another part of the world. They just tear everything down. They mash it to thousands of pieces. They make a new foundation, and they build the next Jerusalem on top of that. There's about 20 of them. So people think they're walking in the holy ground where Yeshua used to when they take these tours and pay these $3,800 per person to fly there and have 14 days of fun. Simply not true. None of it. It's not true at all. You may be walking on that sacred ground. It's more like 40 to 50 feet underneath you. So I'll leave that there. I'm just not trying to hurt the tourism industry of Jerusalem. I'm just trying to be honest about it. If you're going to go there, you're going to go there. But we're not to go there until we're taken there by Yeshua and his messengers. We're not to go there by Hasatan and his minions, who are going to come first and convince so many people that what I'm saying on this end is a total flat lie, that Yeshua has returned, and he came in his own name, and his name's Bob or Jim or Pete, and that he's doing sacrifices on the temple, and y'all come and you get to do all this too. The answer is no. No. And for those of you in Jerusalem who've been living there 20, 30 years or whatever, you can't live there unless you're of Yehuda, unless you're Jewish. But so you Jewish people who have now come to the understanding of all that, and you hear that and you're on your rooftop when you hear it on the radio, run. Run. Okay. Next is the book of Jeremiah, and we'll start at chapter 1. Okay. Shalom.